I last updated you on the Red Sea Reefer Peninsula 500 at the end of the summer, and now we are deep into autumn when I spend most of my time with the tank. I'm going to share with you a few things that I've been up to recently and let you know about a few of my plans for the immediate future. Now, at the time of my last update, I had just ordered a new aquascape, and that aquascape was to replace one of the 3 islands in my tank. I'd ended up getting corals that were all mostly different shades of green or blue, so they really blended into each other, and none of them stood out. And on top of that, my nemesis, the Tropic Thunder Monty, together with a bit of help from another nemesis, the LA Lakers Monty, had started to take over. So I decided to completely remove the island and start again, this time choosing my coral options more carefully. Now, the old rockscape was quite big, so removing it was quite an intimidating job, but in the end it was actually relatively easy. I managed to avoid bashing the rock on the glass on the way out and breaking any corals in the process. And much to my surprise, removing all of the corals from that rock was actually pretty simple, and I managed to separate the corals that I wanted to keep from the corals I wanted to sell with no major damage. Now, within about 20 minutes or so that task was completed, so I then inserted my new rock and gently rested it in place. Now, I bought this rock as a man-made piece from RR Aquascapes in the UK. And as you can see, it has frag plug holes for really easy coral placement. It has space for 35 corals, although some of the holes are quite close together, so I might need to try to resist cramming in as many as I can in order to allow the coral space to grow out. Now, because I wasn't happy with my coral choices last time round, I'm going to choose more carefully this time round and make sure I go for contrasting colours, as well as bright corals, ideally that fluoresce nicely under blues. And the beauty of having all of these holes in the rockscape is that if I get placement wrong, I can simply pop a coral out, move it around, and start again. Moving on to equipment then, and it might come as a surprise that I haven't changed my lights for at least 2 weeks now, but I do have a bit of an update to give you on 2 other pieces of kit. Firstly, I've removed the Red Sea Reef Wave gyre that I'd bought a few months ago. I decided to add the gyre because I wanted to increase flow in the relatively still area at the bottom centre part of my tank. And I told myself that the fact that it didn't look great wouldn't matter because ultimately it was more important that the corals are happy. But it turned out to be an absolute eyesore in the place I chose to put it, and I think we can all agree that gyres are best placed either at one end at the top of your tank or flanking the weir box where they're nice and hidden out of the way. Now, while that was the main reason, I did also find that it clogged really easily and that power output absolutely plummeted when it got blocked up with algae, even over the course of 2 months. Now, it was really quiet, and when it was running cleanly it did put out nice flow, but for me, I don't want to have to be maintaining it every month or so for that reason I'm sticking with my MP40s. And as you may have seen from one of my recent videos, I fixed the problem of still flow by getting angled MP40 directors that point the flow into the opposite corner. They work pretty well, and the corners of my tank are now less still than they were before, and indeed they've even started blowing my sound bed around. And while ideally I think I'd have an extra power head for increased flow, I'm just about happy enough with the level of flow in this tank for now, so I'm going to see how I get on with the angled MP40s for now. And the other piece of equipment I have to update you on is my phosphate reactor. I made a video about these recently and I've had a ton of questions asking exactly how they work and what the rower phos looks like when it's tumbling. So I placed it in this jug so you can really easily see just how it works. Now, this is filled with rower phos, and as you will see, the tumbling effect isn't perfect and there is a bit of a chunk of rower phos that gathers at the top near the sponge. But for the most part, the majority of the rower phos tumbles absolutely perfectly, i.e. nice and gentle without being too much. But also I'm satisfied that it is all turning over nicely, exposing the surface area to mop up all that yummy phosphate. And while that demonstration was done with rower phos, I've actually switched to NIOS Fuzzy-X recently to control phosphates because it is much cleaner than rower phos, so it doesn't require rinsing beforehand. Now, I've only been using it for 10 days at the date of recording, but in that time it has brought my phosphate down from 0.39 to 0.24, which is just about gentle enough and certainly shows that it is effective. If you've been watching my videos recently, you will probably also have seen my Regal Angelfish. Now, I only got this guy 3 months ago, so it's a bit too early for me to give you a proper care guide and let you know my experiences. But so far, I haven't noticed him nipping any of my SPS corals, any of my torches, chalices or acans, or even any of my zoas. Now, it's entirely possible that he might start nipping at those in the future, and I reckon I can't consider myself out of the woods until I've had him at least another 6 months. But from what I can make out, most people seem to find them to be one of the more reef-safe angelfish, which is great news given how stunning they look. And finally, I've also added a few Goniopora corals. Now, I've never been able to keep Gonies in the past, and they've always died within about 6 months, having looked nice at first and then faded away and retracted. So before I got the gunnies this time round, I started by adding a milliliter per day of manganese, which I have on good authority is required by gunnies. I've since increased that to 2 milliliters per day, and manganese is still showing as 0 on my ICP test. But I'm going to leave it a month or so before I do another ICP test and before I decide if I want to increase my manganese, because 2 milliliters per day is actually quite a lot for a tank this size. Again, it's only been a month or so I can't give you a proper update as to whether or not this has worked, but make sure you're subscribed and I will keep you updated in the long term. So those are my plans for now. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for next week. And until next time, happy reefing.